10 Pegs and Crowns, and I am back with a process video. I think I'm going to break the record for the amount of videos I can actually upload for the month of October. You know, for myself. I know that other people and other content creators can, or by far, you know, upload a lot more videos than I do. But for myself, I think I am getting the hang of how to do this. But I am continuing the Take 4 Fishers of Men devotional by Open Journey. We are meditating on 1 Peter 2, 9 through 10 on week 4. And so this is the final product, or the final look, my journaling session. And before I go any further, two things. This was done off camera. I totally forgot that I had originally placed washi tape to keep it in place when I was trying to draw off the journaling card to kind of blend it in. So I did it off camera, but I did add a piece of tape here, or adhere it by folding it over. And I think I've done that in other videos. And so that way it can kind of create like a little tip in and like a little hidden prayer spot. But another thing, I did indeed misspell the word daughter. So didn't want to correct it. I left it as is. Mistakes happen. But future warning, when you're stamping out a word letter by letter, just double check. Learn from my mistakes. So yeah, if you want to see the process of how I created this, stick around and I'll go ahead and put you on fast forward and let's jump right in. Okay, so let's get started. This is week 2, week 3, and then we'll start on week 4. And just to recap, it says 1 Peter 2, 9 and 10. But you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people for God's own possession, to proclaim the virtues of him who called you out of darkness and into his marvelous light. Once you were not a people, but now you are people of God. Once you had not received mercy, but now you have received mercy. So, for this one, I wasn't really sure what I kind of wanted to do, but as I was going through the items in the actual physical kit, I was led to this image again. It's just very powerful, I think, in my opinion. And then I just tried to go back to make sure that I hadn't used it, and I did use it on the very first week when he, you know, pulled me out of deep waters. And so, but I don't know, like, you know, he who called you out of darkness, he who called you out of deep waters, was still something that was, I guess, really heavy on my mind. And so it's just this image just of mercy and grace and that initial encounter that you have with him. It was just a very powerful, because it's very intimate when you first encountered him. And so, or if you've ever experienced your first encounter and you remember that, for me it was very, very personal, very intimate. And so this image is still one of my favorites. And this is the journaling card that comes in the physical kit, so that's what I wanted to use. And then once you have, but now you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, people for God's own possession, to proclaim the virtues of him who called you out of darkness. And one way that we can proclaim his virtues is through, you know, the power of the Holy Spirit. So the Holy Spirit empowers us to be and continue to be fishers of men. So this dove image is something that I really wanted to use. Side note, I did go ahead and pre-cut everything for video purposes. I knew you don't need to see me cutting everything out. I feel that way. So I did go through the clear stickers and try to find as many of the doves as I could. I ended up finding 3, which was, in my opinion, perfect. You know, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. So I found this at the top of one of the clear stickers. So I wanted to see if I can incorporate that. He drew me out of deep waters. So we'll see how we can use that. And because it was kind of like you drew me out of darkness, you know, in deep waters, it becomes dark. That's kind of the connection I was making. I wanted to go ahead and use all these little splatters that kind of symbolize like water splatters. I did individually cut a lot of these splatters from the clear sticker sheets, as you could tell. And so what I'm going to do is just kind of, you know, place them in random places. That way, you know, you have so much that Ingrid provides for you that you really don't need to do a lot of your own background. She literally does it all for you. And so, yes, I did cut individual ones like this one right here. Let me see if I can bring it up closer to the camera. Like this one only has 2. So yes, I am that kind of crazy. So I'm just kind of placing them right now where I think I'm going to want them. Oh, this does not belong here. And yes, they are really little and very probably a little, you know, nuanced that they are so little, but that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to make sure that I use up all of the clear stickers that I think I can use up on this one. So this one is kind of green. I'll probably cut down this one and this one a little bit more. I may not use all of them as I'm seeing that the clusters are, you know, they don't need that much. So, you know, just kind of play around. This one I might cut and kind of, you know, separate somewhere. Okay, so the idea is that I probably will use this as well, that I want to extend some of these artwork in this color onto the page itself to kind of make it blend in more. So these are the colors that I have. I don't have all the blues, but I do have a lot of the blues from the distress line. So we are going to see what, you know, what fits better. So I think just by looking at it, that speckled egg, stormy sky, and I need a dark blue. I think maybe Uncharted Mariner for these little lines right here, but I'll probably use maybe another medium for that. I feel like tumbled glass is too light. I don't think I see it on here really, but we'll see. I feel like this is too bright of a blue. I don't think I see it in here. Maybe in those little spots right there, but maybe I'll use these for splatters. And this is kind of like a, maybe this is the blue. That probably looks more like that. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started and jump right in. Okay, so for real, fast forward this time. First thing I'm going to go ahead and do is use some washi tape to adhere the journaling card to the actual journaling page, because when I go to apply the distress paint, I want to make sure that I'm coming off right off the image, and I don't want the actual ticket to move. So adhering it with some washi tape, which is easy to peel up, should do the trick. Okay, here I start off with either stormy sky or speckled egg, and what my attempt is to color match the bottom or the very lightest dark, kind of, it's like a muted blue in the background. And so with acrylics, the way that you work, or I've heard you work, I'm not an expert, is you start from the very background and work your way to the front of the image. I actually made an error. I forgot to wet the journaling page or spray it. So that way when I went to apply the ink, it was more fluid and it would move more the way that I wanted it to. But you see me, I just keep applying more, and so I just ran with that. I was kind of hoping that the trust the process is what would happen here. And I was kind of hoping, since I was going to cover it up eventually with adding layers, that it wouldn't be, you know, it wouldn't stand out as much. And that's exactly what I do here. I grab a palette knife and I grab one of the brighter blues to try to see if I can start covering up that little mistake that I made using some of the blues from the top of the journaling card image and just extending that out, but also kind of trying to recreate those kind of swatches on the side as well, and kind of making little marks as well. I'm not really sure if you can see it on the image, but there are some of those little swatches in very random places. And so, I'm hoping that the trust the process is what happens here. So I'm just building layers, adding more of the blue, adding more textures. I didn't like how the blue or how I was applying it with the palette. So I just kind of ended up grabbing the brush and kind of, moving it around with a little bit more water. Here you'll see me kind of realize that maybe that the reason the first blue didn't quite color match was because I forgot to wash my brush. It's a brand new brush, so when I went to go apply color, there was like this murky black that was being applied to it as well. Did not realize it till you see me cleaning it off on the baby wipe. And here I actually used the brush to add more of those little random splotches that I was speaking of just a few seconds ago. And I add and extend some of that dark blue over those that muted blue that I first had applied. And I am starting to see the vision here. I am actually starting to see it, even though it just kind of looks like it's very random. I still have layers to add and more texture. And I know that in the end, I am going to be covering it up with stamps. And so I'm not really worried at this moment. So I just keep building and extending some of the colors from the journaling card and hoping that it kind of blends in a little bit seamlessly onto my page. I do notice that the bottom left-hand corner seems a little bit odd just because there's not a lot of color on that side. So I try to add what looks more realistic. So I add a little bit because there wasn't a ton to begin with on the bottom corner. But I also know that I don't want to add too much because then it's going to look really, really funny. I also noticed that there was some really dark lines on the top of the journaling page that I'm going to try to blend in. For this technique, I'm going to use the distress crayons and dip them into water and use it as if it was kind of like a pencil of sorts to kind of recreate those lines and journal off the card and onto the page itself. I knew that trying to use a palette knife or a fine brush would not work because they just didn't look like that. They would be that thick. So using the distressed crayon itself was probably the best choice. My guess on the Uncharted Mariner was also correct, the color matching. So those deep colors were in fact a very deep, rich blue, but I can tell that now that I put down the blue, I can also tell that Ingrid must have used a darker color, which I'm going to assume is black. And I'm going to go ahead and extend those and actually add additional black marks to kind of tie in some of the marks that I made to kind of, blend them together onto the journaling card or off the journaling card onto the page. With the black, I'm a little bit more strategic as to where I place the marks because I do want to add enough black to tie it all in together, but I don't want to put so much that you can tell that it was, I guess, added in by me. I really do want to make this flow together. So the less is more rule applies here. Also on the journaling card, Ingrid added some splatters. So all I do is I reactivate some of the distress paint that I had used on the palette earlier by adding or spraying some water to it. And then I'm going to go ahead and use a small brush. I did notice that there seemed to be two different colors of the blue splatters on there. So I'm going to try to use one of the darker, or not the darker, the softer muted blues, but as well as some of the bright blues that is on the card itself. And I'm going to try to see, and I'm going to see that if once I add the splatters, it'll give me a really good idea as to how much I've tied in the journaling card onto the page and to see if I need to do or add anything else. When adding splatters, I do use something to hit the brush. It gives me a more control over the size and the placement of the splatters. But then I also do it freehand, where I kind of just aggressively shake the brush a little bit to get more random different size splatters onto the page. And I go ahead and make sure that I approach it from various angles as well. So that way you'll see me, splattering from the left as well from the right. And now it's time to actually place down some of the splatters from the actual clear stickers that are included in the physical kit. But before starting to place the stickers or going any further, I do give a quick wipe on my desk just to make sure that I pick up any undried splatters that I've made, because the last thing I do want is for them to get on my arm and then for me to accidentally transfer that onto my journaling page, because it has happened. So I made sure to kind of do a quick wipe down, and then I go ahead and proceed with applying the first element. And that would be the biggest dove, or the biggest image of the dove that I have with the net. And I know that I want that in the right-hand corner, top right-hand corner. So that's what I do first. I apply that one. And then I use some of the splatters on top of that, just so I can start adding some of the blues, because I want to commit to adding some of those splatters immediately onto the page before I start to second guess myself. And the only reason I may begin to second guess myself is because once I applied some of the blue on the on the left side of the journaling page, I can tell I probably won't need all of the splatters, but I still wanted to commit to using them. So here you'll kind of see me mess around with the placement of the doves, wanted to see if or where I originally had them was the best option for me. I even thought to bring it over to the left-hand side, but that was an immediate no. And then I realized that it was the actual placement of the text. Once I moved the text up a little bit, I really did like the flow of the placement of the doves. I liked the smallest one towards the middle of the page on the top, and then the medium-sized one right next to the large one, kind of offsetting and drawing your eyes as if it was getting closer. Although I truly love the technique of using some of the smaller splatters by themselves or individually, the hardest part about it or the struggle with that, is to try to remove the backing, because once they're smaller than your finger size, it is really hard to get the backing. And here, this is exactly what you see me do. I am actually really, really struggling to get the backing off that one little piece, and I think it's an individual one. It might be a little one. And I struggled forever. This is a sped up video, so I really struggled with that little one. But all in all, I still love using those individual ones because it does give the illusion of a more organic feel to it, as opposed to using it in big clusters, or I feel, in my opinion, it gives a more organic feel. When I apply stickers onto a page, I do a technique or a hack that Lindsay came up with. And what that really is you peel off some of the backing, or just enough to cut a little bit off, and then use that bit that is exposed to adhere it to the journaling page to where you want it to stay. Once you create that little hinge, it's easy to pull off the rest of the backing. And what that does, it helps you control where the sticker lays, because especially when you're using bigger pieces or bigger elements or bigger sticker sheets, you may have noticed that sometimes when you remove the whole backing, it is really hard to align it, and then you start to create little bubbles. So doing the little hinge technique or hack is a really great way to add stickers to your journaling page. And I've done it ever since I saw Lindsay do it, and I will continue to do it forever, except for the little splatters. Those are too small to begin with to do the hinge effect. I randomly decided that I should probably place some of the splatters that I was putting on the right page onto the left, to kind of like connect the two pages together, and so that it didn't look like two pages separately. Hoping that, it makes it look cohesive and that it's all one big page. I do apologize for the weird edits here. After reviewing the video, I went ahead and edited out a whole lot of me struggling, trying to take the backing off the individual pieces, and that's really what I cut out. Just me adding a bunch of the little individual splatters onto the page and just kind of, making sure that I use them all up. Here I am going to use the Fishers of Men stamp set. I am going to go ahead and use the Change Metanoia, I believe that's how you say it, stamp element. And I'm going to use the Black Soot Distress Oxide. And then I'm going to use this little thing that's supposed to help you stamp or get a better quality stamp image. Just because I'm stamping on top of the journaling card and it's not going to be like a complete flat surface, especially because I have previous artwork on the other pages that kind of make it uneven. So that little thing on the left-hand corner, I'm not really sure what the official name for that is, but I saw Tiffany Solorio use it once, and I knew that I probably should get it since I struggle with my hands to kind of make a very good impression of the stamps. I'm going to also use the script element with the tumbled glass color. I wanted to give it more dimension and more depth by using a very off color that I hadn't used before. So here you actually see me use that little scrap piece of paper to see if that would actually work. And I really did like how the tumbled glass gave like some more depth to the other, more muted or bright blues. And I really liked it. I did go ahead and stamp some of that onto the right-hand page, just because I wasn't sure how the rest of the layering was going to go, and I wanted to make sure that, whatever, to include some on the right so it balances out the left. Okay, so at this point, I really honestly feel like I'm done. I do feel like the journaling ticket was very well blended into the page, or as best as I could, blended into the page. And so I didn't think that I needed to add any more elements or any more splatters, at least not until the end. So I used my heat gun to quickly dry up any spots that may still be wet from the initial application of the background or anything like that, just because I want to use the alpha stamps and I don't want them to bleed. When drawing my journaling page, I did notice some of the splatters did end up flying away. I did not realize I hadn't, adhere them all to the page. So before I put on the alpha stamps, you'll see me add the last bits that kind of flew off with the air from the heat gun. As I'm getting ready to stamp out the title of my page of what I've been praying and meditating about, I'm going to go ahead and take out each individual letter because I want to stamp out the word the word daughter. The reason I'm laughing is because hindsight is always 20/20. And I didn't realize at the moment because I was singing as a voiceover. You won't hear me sing in the actual video. But I did not realize I misspelled daughter. I guess I just was not paying enough attention. But when you stamp out words and you're stamping them out individually by letter, just always double check. It doesn't hurt, especially if you have a gut feeling that it doesn't look right. Here, I'm just kind of playing with the placement because I was looking at it and I knew it didn't look right. But I'm like, whatever, I'm praying, I'm worshiping. And I was like, okay, this is all I need. It's just the placement that I have to play with. Never in my mind did it cross that I was missing some letters. I do reach for my "Do You Love Me" stamp, kit stamp, because I want to stamp out "I am his daughter." I don't have a stamp that actually says his, so that's gonna be written in with some fluid acrylic ink, I believe it's called. And so I'm going to go ahead and stamp out "I am" first, and that will be offset kind of like in the middle of the pages because that's where most of the white space is, and I don't want to leave it there because I do want to draw the "I" from the left to the right side of the page. And so I begin with the most glaring, obvious mistake my misspelled daughter word. And yeah, so that did happen. I do want to mention that when stamping out big words, depending on your layout, you do want to make sure that you lay them out right. Besides the fact that you also want to check the spelling. For me, I made sure to line up the words right to left because I wanted to make sure that I had enough space to type out or to stamp out the word daughter since, it was going to be a longer word. And I wanted to make sure that it didn't go onto the actual journaling card itself because if I did that, I knew it was just going to look funky. So I just made sure that there was enough space, and I did that by, making sure that the last letter on the word was going to fit by placing that towards the end of the page. And I do want to point out that yes, I do clean my stamps off after every use or after every impression. I just want to make sure that they last, that they last a while. So I do try to make sure that I clean them off as best as possible. Plus, with the oxide, it kind of tends to reactivate when you use distress oxides. So I didn't want for the black to reactivate when I would, try to use another color, especially a lighter color. There was a last little cluster of splatters that I didn't adhere because when I was thinking about stamping out my title, I wasn't sure where it was gonna fall. So I kind of left it in place for a little bit until I stamped out, the big words I am and daughter. And then once I saw where they fell, it was easier for me to kind of decide and commit to where I wanted them. And whenever I use acrylic ink, I tend to try to use a pencil and very lightly, write out where I think I'm going to write or how I want it to look. So this is kind of what you see me do with the pencil right here is just kind of practice before I write into it because it is very, very hard to clean up or to cover up the acrylic ink once it's placed on the paper. And so here I am just going to write the word his. As an afterthought, I did make a few scribbles under the word his because I felt like there was a lot of white space, but absolutely not necessary. Here I'm definitely for sure thinking I'm just almost done. I need a few touches, but one thing that did stand out to me that I want to incorporate somehow is the part of the verse that says, "He brought me out of darkness into light." Into his marvelous light. And I wasn't sure how I wanted to incorporate that. And then I remembered I had gold acrylic ink. So I go ahead and wipe off one of the little cavities in the palette from the previous colors that I was using. And I put a few drops of the acrylic ink. But when it was in the actual little cavity, I realized how bright it was. So I used a little bit of the Uncharted Mariner, very little, and I go ahead and mix it, and it dulls the brightness of it to kind of flow better with the actual page. I have found that working with metallic colors, the less is more rings true. So I did use some. I didn't use a lot because I didn't want it to overwhelm the page with a lot of gold accent to it. And this is it. This is the final look. This is the end result. Accidents happen. I'm not really happy that I misspelled the word daughter, but I'm appreciative of the fact that the reason that I misspelled it was because I was deep in worship and prayer. And so mistakes happen. Things are the way that they are sometimes. So I hope you enjoyed the process. I hope you join us for the rest of the Fishers of Men. And until next time, love you. Bye.